Welcome to Miracle Mansion podcast. My name is Marcus True. I'm head of treatment and counselling here at Broadway Lodge, the beautiful, wonderful Broadway Lodge. Just like to ask everybody to like and subscribe. Now, I have a special guest with me today. He is affectionately known to me as patient number 10. His name is William Pryor, and he's affectionately known as patient number 10 because he was the 10th person to come to Broadway Lodge in 1974, and it's opening. So welcome, William.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for coming down.
Not at all.
Here we are. We're
yes.
back at Broadway Lodge.
Yes, it's interesting. Yes, mixed emotions.
Tell me a little bit. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to Broadway Lodge. So, how long? I mean, how long has it been? So, 1974.
47 years.
47. Christ.
I know.
47 years.
I stopped counting a long time ago.
Good man.
Yeah.
47 years. That's inspirational to people that will eventually see this and think, wow, 47 years.
Yeah.
I think at that time I was 5 years old.
Well, there you go.
I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
Cool. So just tell me a little bit about yourself.
You want the story?
Yes. Why not? Let's chop it up a bit.
Once upon a time, I grew up in Cambridge.
Yeah.
And my father was a don at Trinity College.
Oh, right. Okay.
My mother was a musician.
Right.
And cook and mother and I got in with. They sent me to Eton, which I hated.
Right. Okay.
I really detested it.
Okay. Why is that?
Why? Because the snobbery is rampant. I mean, I'm told it's better nowadays, but the snobbery and the stupidity. I found the hunting, shooting, and fishing types.
Okay.
Were.
They weren't quite
not my cup of tea.
Not your cup of tea.
And coming from, because my family are what you might call the intellectual elite.
Right. Okay.
In that my mother was the great-granddaughter of Charles Darwin.
Okay. Wow.
And my grandma, her mother, was Gwen Raverat. She married a Frenchman.
Right.
And she was a very fine artist.
Right. Okay.
Pioneered the use of woodblock carving to make prints.
Right, okay.
And she worked with all sorts of great people. And so that was the sort of circumstance. And I persuaded everyone I could leave Eton at the age of 16.
Right, okay. What was the normal age for leaving then?
Oh, when you'd done your A-levels. So
right,
18,
okay,
19,
19, yeah, okay.
And so I escaped and I had to go to what's called a crammer.
Right, what's that?
It's an institution for getting you through an exam.
Right, okay.
And I got good results. On one occasion, there was another public school boy, but not Etonian. Mm-hmm. And we said, what's the date today? And he said, 4th of June. And 4th of June in Eton is a very crucial day. It's when all the Rolls Royces gather, and masses of Rolls Royces and Daimlers and people with silly hats on.
Yeah.
And it's all dreadful. And whilst we were sort of hiding from possible cousins or something, we saw a guy taking pictures of us. I mean, it was definitely taking us because he was doing it from other angles. And so we went up to him and said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm just taking pictures for Life magazine for the British aristocracy at play." Right, okay. And lo and behold, it appeared in Life magazine, half a page.
Wow.
So that's one end of it. Mm-hmm. The other end is at about the age of 14, 15, I was smoking dope because my peer group in Cambridge were people that went on to be the Pink Floyd and so on, all very rebellious, rejecting our parents' view of the world, and a bit of ganja was great. Yeah, and
acceptable.
My friends could take it and leave it.
Right.
With dope I could as well, but then someone discovered Collis Brown's chlorodyne.
Right, okay, tell me a bit about that.
You don't know about that?
No, not at all. I'm green.
I think you can still buy it in chemists.
Really? What is it?
It's a patent medicine invented by the Victorians in India.
Right, okay.
And it has quite a nice dose of opium in it.
Ooh.
And all sorts of other nasty things.
Right, okay.
But
what's it called?
Chlorodine.
Chlorodine, okay.
It's a typical Victorian name, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we discovered that if you put it into a saucepan with some sugar, the nasty camphor and other things that expectorants would come out, and you just get a pure, disgusting sludge of opium.
Wow.
That we drank. And we did it, and we were all going, "Whoa," and they never did it again, my friends, but I did do it again.
Okay.
And again, and again. And then on a trip to Greece in a beaten-up old car, I went to Hydra, the island of Hydra, which had all these American beats. I had been in Paris, being a beatnik, doing what beatniks do, which is read poetry and that sort of thing, and the romance of Paris. Yes, so then we went to Greece in this beaten-up old Humber snipe, and on the island of Hydra, there were all these Americans, people like Leonard Cohen and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And one in particular, this American, who was also a great guitarist, asked me for my address. I didn't think I gave it to him. And then I was going up to Trinity that autumn.
Was that Trinity College?
Trinity College Cambridge,
yeah.
To read, would you believe it, moral sciences. And I got this note, and it was from this American guy.
Yeah.
"I've got something you might be interested in," he said. "Can I come and see you?" So he came, and he was a registered junkie.
Right, okay.
And he had his NHS heroin and cocaine. You're aware that happened?
Tell me a little bit more. No, I'm absolutely not.
Post-war, most addicts, nearly all addicts, were, what's the term, clinical addicts.
Right, okay.
In other words, it's a result of war wounds or whatever. They got been given morphine or heroin and couldn't stop. So the attitude of the government was very gentle and kind, and you've got an illness, and, well, yes, you need nice, clean supply. So there was a little pharmacy opposite the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge. There were two pharmacies that did it. And we'd all turn up there at 9 o'clock waiting for him to come and unlock the door and give us our little plastic files with
pharmaceutical
heroin and cocaine.
Supplied by the government?
Supplied by the government.
In a caring and compassionate way back then compared to what...
Yes, compared to what happened later.
Yeah.
When the Americans, when they discovered that was going on in England, were outraged. This is moral turpitude. We must put a stop to it. So they put endless pressure on the government. The government caved in, and the whole regime of addiction changed. And you couldn't get heroin anymore, and the methadone that you were given was limited, and it was a bad step, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm gobsmacked because I didn't even know that. Well, I didn't even know that you...
in Portugal and Switzerland...
Yes, well, I know about Portugal and
Switzerland has a different regime as well.
Well, I didn't know about Switzerland, but I definitely knew about Portugal because they've got a quite different policy on addiction. They don't criminalise it.
No, quite exactly.
They treat it as a medical issue rather than a criminal issue. So,
yes, exactly. Because
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Health issue.
The big problem of drug addiction, apart from the people, is crime.
Yes.
And that it is criminalised, and that we addicts steal liberally to support our habits.
Yeah.
So my addiction grew and grew, and I was at Cambridge reading moral sciences, which is about philosophy and logic.
Right, okay.
And it was just getting worse and worse. And we did various outrageous things, like we put on happenings in the centre of Cambridge, which no one knows quite what a happening is, but it's a sort of improvised event.
Right, okay.
With poems and music and free-form music. And,
so it's very arty, very creative.
Yeah. And so in that light, one comes up against the fact that many artists, particularly jazz musicians, relied on heroin to do what? To bring them into the moment.
Yeah. So sometimes I hear that it's sometimes, particularly with some artists, it stems their creativity, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Charlie Parker is a prime example.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the difference between him and John Coltrane. Charlie Parker was just total addict and used it whenever he could get some, which was every day. Whereas Coltrane got addicted, but being the man he was, he just stopped. He went and locked himself in his father's garret and just stopped. And then when he came clean, he made the most amazing music he's ever made.
Yeah.
For a few years, and then he died quite young. So that's one thing. And the connection between opiates in particular and creativity is something I've thought a lot about. And therefore, why does that matter? Well, we all want to be loved, don't we? And so the hole in my middle was caused by my parents being very middle-class British, strangers to emotion.
Yeah.
Strangers to sharing how you are, how you feel.
Yeah.
Particularly my mother. Well, no, my father was the same as well. There are two things he did while he was still alive as a parent. One was when I came back from Paris, having taken a lot of LSD.
Yeah.
I was a genius. I discovered I was a genius. And he said, "Oh, all right, here's a typewriter." And that was good move. And then when he discovered that I was going off to India to see a guru, he gave me a beautiful portable Buddha.
Right, okay.
So the two gestures he made, but it was all gestures.
Yeah.
So the whole is I think this is the root of most addiction, that if you're not seen at the crucial age of 2 or 3 by your mother, if you don't have that sense of being as a separate being from her, you have this hole in you, and you don't quite know what it is, but it hurts, and taking heroin makes it go away.
Okay, yeah, so it fills the void, doesn't it?
It fills the void. It's self-medication.
Yeah.
But, of course, the problem with self-medication is that it becomes the drug. I mean, it is the drug, but it becomes the addiction.
Yes, itself, yeah.
And so the one thing that many people said to me in those years was, "Why? You're so intelligent. Why are you doing this?" And that encapsulates the whole thing, because it's nothing to do with intelligence.
Absolutely.
And it's nothing to do with even really understanding yourself. You learn to be a driven thing who's very focused on the next fix.
Yes.
And everything else just goes hang, and it does. And hence you get all the damage in the family and all that stuff.
Yeah, all the bomb blast from your addiction.
Yeah. So it got to a point in my 3rd year at Trinity. I was getting prescriptions for heroin and cocaine, and I didn't think I was getting enough, so I forged a prescription. Rubbing out.
Oh, God. Yeah. As you do.
I took it to the chemist, the usual chemist, and he just did raise an eyebrow slightly. And then, but he didn't say anything. And then the next day, the police arrived. I was staying at home at that point, and the police arrived and said, "Is this your prescription, Mr. Pryor?"
He called the police?
Yeah.
Christ, what happened next?
I was taken to court, and it was all deeply shocking. You can imagine my father being a pillar of the Cambridge establishment. He was deeply shocked. And I was fined £200, which in those days was a lot of money.
God.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money these days. So, God, back then that would have been a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, it was. And so from that moment, my life was filled with shame and regret and not fitting in and not knowing what to do. So what I did do was start selling books. And I went to work for the biggest bookshop in Cambridge, because I'd gone out. The guy running it was this wonderful old British chap called Plum Warner, and he was a cricketer as well. Yeah. And his daughter, he was married to an Italian, and his daughter was very beautiful, Marina. And she went on to be what one calls a blues stocking, an academic. Right, okay. But briefly, I was with her for 2 weeks, and that transitioned into... Yes, so it was because of that I went to knock on Plum, her father's door in the bookshop. I want a job. He said, oh, yeah, what can you do? I said, well, I've just been studying philosophy. All right, we'll give you the philosophy section. I hadn't a clue. But I muddled my way through that, and I was still using and finding people who had a supply. There was one particular American who lived in Cambridge who... I don't know where he got it from, but he had a supply of NHS heroin. Right, okay. Little pills, the size of a saccharin tablet. Right, yeah. I think they were Viceptones at the time. I don't know. Yes, Viceptone was around, but but we didn't like it. Yeah, because it's a con. Yeah. And did you know it was invented by the Nazis? I did. Yeah, I did hear. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did hear about. Which is interesting. Gives us a sort of evil flavour, doesn't it? Puts a dark cloud over the whole vice. Yeah, but I did and was aware of that. Yeah. So there I am, getting worse and worse, and the first attempt for me to get clean was I can't remember how it came about, but I was sent to the first NHS treatment facility, which was in a huge loony bin called Cane Hill in Surrey. Right, okay. Near Coulsdon. Yep. And they just given one locked ward over to this addiction chap, and he didn't have a clue what he was doing. And it was a disaster because, they gave us heroin for 3 or 4 days, tailing off. And when it tailed off too much, one of us found a way through the lavatory window and got on the train to Piccadilly to score for everyone in the room. And then I, being me, went to the staff and said, look, we're getting supply in, don't you? We need to tail off again. So I persuaded them to reinstall this regime. And so we actually very rarely didn't have any heroin in the hospital. And I left because I think they were getting fed up and realising it wasn't working. So they let me go with a box full of methadone files because I had to inject it. Yeah. That was made a pretty big nonsense of it all. And then I had moved down to Devon, the geographical cure. It definitely was. As you do. As you do. Yeah. And had a little bookshop in Torquay, all places. Yeah. And, of course, there was a drug scene in Torquay, as there is in most seaside places. Yeah, very much so, yeah. And the police were quite onto it, and they were taking photographs of me in my little bookshop. What year was that, then? What year are we talking now? 71, 72. Okay, cool. Something like that. So then there was another court case, and the police put pressure on me, as the receiver of the drugs, not the seller. Right. And so we were going to put these guys away, William, and they did. And his friends came and got me, beat me up, so I haven't got any front teeth. Right, okay. And my now wife was then my girlfriend. She went back the next day and picked up my teeth. It was in the car park beneath this nightclub. And then my brother-in-law, who I've been great friends with, he's a genius. He's a real genius. Right. In other words, his brain works. And he was a lecturer in Buddhism in particular. And my sister, my youngest, I have 3 sisters, but the next one down from me, met him and was so moved when he gave her a blade of grass as a present that they've been together ever since. And he was troubled by the way I was troubling my mother and my father.
And that's because of the addiction?
Because of the addiction,
yeah.
And he found out about Broadway Lodge.
Right, okay.
Wasn't called Broadway Lodge in those days, was it? It's called
Totterdown
something.
Totterdown Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing name for an addiction treatment place. Totterdown. Yes, so I remember in the weeks before I came here, I was using something called heminevrin, which it's a drug invented in Sweden to help alcoholics come off. But I was abusing it.
Okay.
And really killing myself. So when I came here,
Okay, so you was in a bad way by the time
I was in a very bad way.
Really? Okay.
I should have died several times.
Oh, God.
Another time I was in hospital in Exeter. And the nurses brought all the other addicts to look at me. That's what's going to happen to you, they said, if you carry on like he has. So chances of getting me straight, I think, were quite small. But Jim Ditzler, who's the tough marine psychologist, a US marine psychologist.
Is that who they had here?
Who ran this place.
Right, okay. Say his name again.
Jim Ditzler.
Jim Ditzler.
And his wife, Joyce Ditzler.
Okay.
She was, what was she? She was also a psychologist, I think. Yeah, and there was that crucial moment in the group when, I'm sure you still do it, everyone was saying what they thought of me. Come on, tell William what you think. What's he up to? And they'd all be pointing at me and shrinking on my chair. And then there was a silence when no one had any more to say. And Jim said, "William, I think you're just about getting ready to like yourself." What?
My God.
Yes. So I'm jumping about a bit.
Yeah, that's okay.
Chronologically, it's not quite.
That's absolutely fine. We're having a conversation.
In the 1980s, 85, 86, I think, I organised a conference on addiction called Unhooked Thinking.
Right.
Because whoever I talk to about it, no one actually seems to know what addiction is.
Yeah.
And this is extraordinary. You know, we know what all sorts of other illnesses are, but why do we not understand addiction? Because it's so contrary. Those people who would ask me, "You're so intelligent, why are you doing it?"
Yeah.
That's the perplexity. You know it's doing you harm. You know it's damaging you. You've got to have more of it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter that you might die. But that's interesting too, isn't it? That it doesn't matter that you might die. It's that extreme.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I constantly having conversations with, say, families who just don't get it.
Yes.
And it's really it's a real difficult concept to understand, isn't it?
Yes.
Something that you and I know you need it to survive. You know it's going to kill you, but you just can't stop taking it.
Yes.
And people just unless you have actually been there and been in those shoes, it's just really difficult to explain to people.
Yes, yeah, it is.
So, tell me about this conference, though. So, let's go back to Broadway Lodge. And
right.
So you was here for how long? 3
months.
Oh, my God. Of
yes.
That regime?
Yes.
What was that like?
Tough. Yes. And then, he brought in my mother and my sisters and they did all that. Do they still do that?
Yeah, we still have families. We still have family conferences and stuff.
Yes.
COVID has changed it slightly, but we used to, not up until a little while back, have families coming in and doing the work with them. And
yeah, that was tough. And then I wasn't allowed to go home. I had to go to a halfway house in Liverpool.
Right. Okay. What, from here?
From here.
Yeah.
Which was a great shock.
In what way?
Liverpool was a shock to me.
Yes, so
you can imagine.
Yeah, culturally, completely different.
I was fish out of water.
Definitely.
And actually, the place was just a house with beds in it. I mean, there was nothing done. There was no therapy. It was just not home. That was the main quality it had, that it wasn't home.
Okay.
You're not plunging yourself back into that social environment. Mm-hmm. But eventually, I got to leave.
How long?
I think I was there not very long, actually. I wangled my way out quite quickly. Another 2 months, I think.
Oh, God, that's 8 weeks.
Yeah.
After 3 months of this.
Yeah.
God bless you. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
That must have been tough.
Yes, I think it was, yes. And of course, then I discover what all addicts know, that my emotional life had stopped when I first started using. I just hadn't developed, so I was still a teenager at the age of 35. And that's awkward, being a teenager, love affairs that come and go, and this huge emotional ride, no stability, and depression and highs. There were highs, there still are highs.
Yeah. And the lows as well to go with it.
And the lows with it, yeah, because I'm convinced that, a good friend of mine who's now dead, but his son is, what's the word? Manic depressive.
Right, okay.
And magnificently manic depressive. In that, for episodes with him, he discovered that he was the King of Scotland.
Okay.
And had to tell MI5. Well, you would, wouldn't you? If you discovered you were the King of Scotland.
Yeah.
You would have to tell MI5. And he broke into MI5.
Oh, God.
To tell them that I'm the King of Scotland. I said, oh, yes, well, of course you are. Yes. But it's a bit like me coming back from Paris saying, I'm a genius.
Yeah.
My friends all said, oh, yes, very good.
Yeah.
And so we live in these fantasies of ourselves. And the manic depressive is, they go on these manic shopping expeditions and spending all the money they've got and being frustrated that you can't see that I'm a genius. Why isn't it obvious I'm a genius? So that's what that drugs do as well. I mean, they don't help. I think everyone has some element of manic depression. I mean, the mania and then the depression.
Yeah.
Because we're all up and down.
Yeah.
And that is the pattern of addiction, isn't it? That you take the hit, that releases a great bit of dopamine. And then the dopamine, the generating dopamine bit, says, oh, you've had a lot of dopamine. Well, we'll withdraw it for now. And the brain stops the supply of dopamine. And so you go down.
So you go down to that depression.
And you have to fix it to go up. So that's in a way what I'm most grateful for my sobriety, is that I can ride the funicular railway of emotion.
Yeah.
And the fact that I've now got Parkinson's doesn't help.
Okay.
Because Parkinson's because it's a dopamine-based illness, lack of dopamine is what it largely is.
Okay.
The mood swings can be quite strong.
So tell me a little bit more about the Parkinson's and the impact of that on your recovery, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I can't even remember how long ago I was diagnosed. I think 4 years. 4 years.
When did you start to know that something wasn't quite right with yourself?
Well, I was falling over.
Right, okay.
With absolutely no reason. I'd be walking on,
right, okay.
Crash, bang. And I'd been doing that a lot longer. The first symptom I had, which many share, is I can't smell anything.
Right.
Your nose stops working.
So that's...
and that is a symptom of Parkinson's.
Right, okay. So you just started to notice one day that you couldn't smell your food.
Yes, couldn't smell anything.
Anything.
So it's an advantage when you go to India,
right? Because you can't smell all the spices.
You can't smell the drains.
Oh God, yes. My sister went there. She said it's as beautiful as it is.
It is beautiful,
but it can be smelly at times.
Yes.
Yeah, with the waste.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so that's another key part of my life is India. Mm-hmm. I first went in 1967 to see this guru, and the doctor had given me a big bottle of methadone, and that was to last me 3 months.
How long did it last you?
About 2 days. So there I was, this spiritual journey, being so lovingly looked after and cared for, and given access to the guru, and yet there I was coming off it all.
Yeah.
So we were there. We went up to Punjab, where he was, and when I came home, I was pretty immediately back on using.
Yeah.
That's indicative of how this. You know, the guys that say that in the Vietnam War, a lot of these soldiers, American soldiers, were using heroin, which was shipped in by the CIA for them, because the government felt we can keep them quiet. And then when they decided to leave Vietnam, all those that were using just stopped. Because the circumstances changed.
Circumstances changed,
which I think is key to understanding how attitude has such a strong effect.
Yeah, definitely.
Mindset.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because it's to think that it is a solution to this pain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more. So you started to develop Parkinson's. The first thing you noticed was that your smell had gone and you started falling over.
Yes.
And then how did that go from there?
Well, so I've forgotten who. I think it was my GP. Mm-hmm. Yes, he referred me to the movement specialist consultant, and they just have a sort of series of tests they do. Do this, do that. And my handwriting was deteriorating.
Right, okay.
And right now I find it quite hard to write anything that's legible. But otherwise I'm okay. It's not too serious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Had you not said to me, I wouldn't have known anything.
You wouldn't?
Not at all. No. Not at all. No. I mean, I know we had a couple of conversations on the phone and you did say, I've got Parkinson's, but on arrival here, I wouldn't have known at all. Not until we said downstairs about carrying the cup of tea. So you still got your, well, I have to say, William, you still got your faculties about you and still very funny. So yeah.
Thank you.
Tell me, so where did you end up going to in India? Because I've always known India as Goa as the kind of the spiritual place where everybody goes to. So
Punjab.
Right, okay. So why is India so special to you? How come?
Well, spirituality is the key of my life.
Cool. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, the guru, he teaches, or the present guru, because my guru died, teaches meditation, very simple meditation. And the point is that we are not our bodies. We are not anything physical. We are spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, love. And there is something they call the ringing radiance, the sound inside. There is a sound all the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you can bring all your attention here, which is the point of the meditation, then you will become part of that sound. You will hear it. And it's bliss. It's the ultimate, it's the reason we're here.
Wow. It's funny.
This is extraordinary, because the current guru, who took over from my guru, he's been at it for 20-something years, and his presence is just extraordinary, and he knows everything. I mean, so he calls me by name, but he has something like 1.5 million disciples, around the world, and yet he knows my name.
Well, that's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny you should talk about kind of spirituality and stuff. So as part of the development and changes of Broadway Lodge is I introduced a class called an Introduction to Spirituality, which is, I believe that the disease of addiction is a spiritual illness. We need a spiritual solution. So, we can get clean and get back houses, family, jobs, whatever it is, the kind of that external stuff. But at some point, we're going to have to address the spiritual malady that we have through addiction and through the loss of that thing that you were talking about, the hole, the void,
yes,
which could have come about as a result of the lack of parent in childhood relationship, whatever it is. But wherever we lost it, that needs to be filled, and that cannot be filled with anything external.
No.
So I kind of working with my sponsor and being in recovery and kind of listening to stories, the thing that seems to resonate with most people is spirituality.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, exactly.
Yeah, whatever it is for each person. But you need to find something, because you're not ever going to be truly happy until you find that bit, the bit that you point to there, the thing that I call my soul, whatever it is.
Yes.
So we introduced, I introduced a class here, which is every week, I think it's every Wednesday, 2:00 for an hour, where we've got one of a lady called Mags, who's very much into the spiritual aspect of recovery, and she just introduces that's the spiritual aspect of meditation, mindfulness, and prayer, and just looks at what spirituality is and different forms of it and stuff. So I feel quite proud that we're doing that here, because it's well, to me it's key, and it's certainly something that I personally didn't understand way back when I cleaned up in 2005,
right?
When I was 35, so I can kind of resonate with you about being 35, but actually the emotions were probably late teens to early 20s, exactly. And where everything could. I was just so far behind everybody else.
Spoiled. I was very spoiled.
Was you?
Oh. Well, I was spoiled by the bit of yourself that propels you forward.
Yeah.
And the world is so against me. Therefore, I've got to be really tough and strong and push through, regardless of what it does to other people.
Yeah. No, I can understand. I felt quite
ruthlessness.
I felt quite like almost a victim, really, where I'd had so. I'd had opportunities to make something of myself, and then to kind of find myself at 35 and it wasn't as beautiful as Broadway Lodge, but to find myself in rehab and having to start again and looking at other people and seeing that they were getting on with their lives. They had houses, cars, jobs, and just thinking, what have I done to myself? So. Yeah, it was, and then, but still having the emotions of a young, at times teenager, 20-year-old. But I was 35.
Yeah,
I was 30 when I was well aware I was 35 because I'd had a career. So I completely resonate with you. Cleaning up and being 35 years old, and I ended up coming here, but obviously you went off to Liverpool for. That must have been it was a culture shock, if I'm honest.
Yes,
complete culture shock from where I'm from Peckham in London, so I grew up in South London. So this coming to this sleepy seaside town, as beautiful as it is and as wonderful as it was just it was a culture shock. It completely was.
Yes.
So what's life for you these days?
Right now it is moving house.
Okay.
Because I've come through a disastrous business venture.
Tell us a bit about it.
2013, a guy I've been working with in all sorts of different ways for a long time, and I found this business called Book Barn, which is not far from here, in Poulton, in Somerset. And it's a warehouse full of second-hand books. I mean, a large warehouse full of lots of books. And it was going disastrously wrong, and we were able to buy it for £1.
Right, okay.
Because it had lots of debt.
Yeah. Okay, so you had to take on the debt.
We had to take on the debt, and we then started to modernise it and improve the building and open a little cafe, and it was going well, but we never were profitable enough, and we had to do what's called a CVA, a company voluntary arrangement.
Yeah.
And we did that well, and we paid it off in 2 years.
Right, okay.
So that takes us to 2017. And we were going all right-ish, not brilliant, but all right. Selling well over 1 million books a year. But things caught up with us. The cost of shipping had gone so high that it kind of knocked everything out of the sink. And then this guy came along, a local chap, another old Etonian I discovered.
Okay.
And he said, look, I can help you. I'll turn this business around. And I love the business because I've been seeing it for years. And we had a lot of emotional support. And he was one of these alpha male types. A conversation with him wasn't really a conversation. It was him talking at you. And he was going to turn it all around. We're going to merge all the companies because my wife had the rug shop upstairs, which was doing well. We're going to merge them all into a green conglomerate that has all these principles. And from that moment on, the business went further down.
Oh, my Lord.
And until suddenly in May this year, he started shouting at me and accusing me all sorts of things, because he was realising he wasn't actually making it work and he needed a scapegoat, and that was me. So I'm out of that. But that was quite traumatic.
Oh, Christ.
But not once did I think of looking for a fix or a drink.
Yeah.
Because that's a bit we missed out about my story. My drug use degenerated into alcoholism.
Right, okay.
Quite quickly. When I could, in Torquay, couldn't get the drugs because of the police operation. Right. And I hadn't got the experience of London anymore because Piccadilly was no longer the centre of heroin. Yeah. So I turned to booze. Okay. And was drinking at least 1 bottle of rum a day.
God almighty.
Yeah.
What did that do to you?
Well, I got the tremors, but not Parkinson's tremors, but alcohol tremor. Yeah. Oh, and it was very destructive. Yeah. I mean, I think alcohol is the worst poison of the lot.
Dare I say it?
And it's extraordinary that society doesn't see that.
Well,
statistically, it kills far more people.
Well, we see people when they're coming here sometimes, the biggest fears a medical team have are particularly around those that when they're detoxing from alcohol because of the medical issues and the complications.
Yes, the DTs.
Yeah, yes. And obviously some of the other complications that they have as a result of, their alcoholism. So there's anxieties and compromised livers and stuff like that. We see people. We rarely see people go off their feet when they're detoxing from an opiate or something, but certainly when they're being detoxed from alcohol, you see people. We see people get really, really ill. Yes. So tell me a little bit more about.
So the reason I'm seeing you today is that I found this site called Sell What You Know. Yeah. That sounds like an interesting idea. Sell what I know. And it's a guy he's got all the internet marketing and all the ways to present what you're selling. And the idea is sell what do you know? And that appeals to me greatly because we all know a lot more than we let ourselves know.
Yeah.
We have much more wisdom than we ever could imagine. And so in my arrogance, I think I can help people who are addicted or the families of addicts. It's just with my experience and taking them through this coaching process that this guy teaches. So I'm sort of 2 weeks into that 3 weeks into that training.
Okay. So how long's this course for?
It's another 6 weeks at least. Yeah. I mean, it's you self-regulate. You go at your own speed, and my speed is quite slow.
Right. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So if you go with that slow process, helps you to take it in a bit more. Yeah. William, listen, it's so lovely for you to come down.
Well,
Thank you for
glad
coming.
I've come.
And coming and seeing Broadway Lodge and just really chopping it up about your story, your past, and how we, obviously recovery is possible. We're talking about what we're talking 40, how many years now?
47 years.
47 years. So certainly recovery is possible, one day at a time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.